So just want to go back to the beginning now and just talk about your youth and growing up. You grew up in Stratford.
Yeah, I knew him.
Yeah. What was it like growing up in Stratford?
Uh, for me, it was fun.
Yeah.
For me, it was really fun. It was a lot going on. Obviously, I grew up in a generation where like the postcode war was quite heavy.
Sure.
So, so like, it was obviously that part wasn't fun at all. But the part that was fun was like there's clear unity within your own community because it almost like it's us against the world in that sense, isn't it? But for me personally, thankfully, I haven't like personally experienced anything crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't get myself down a wrong path, and what helped was that piece of course in this because I got into the gym, and because when I started early, I started like my first session at 16. I wasn't able to hang around with friends, so the class started in the evenings, maybe 9. Let's finish at 9 or 10. I'd be knackered. I'll go home instead of hanging around the guys in it. And the next morning, Daniel Stan would say, "Yo, come to the gym at 6 a.m. I can't stay out late. I've got to go home and sleep." So that kind of, without me knowing, kind of like pushed me away from the crowd I was with.
Yeah.
And then I'd start entering a new crowd with up-and-coming fighters at the time, with obviously Dylan, Jawany, Kingsley, and Hasib.
Yeah.
So yeah, without me knowing, I was in that crowd, and I slowly just matured with more better people around me in that sense.
Yeah. And all of those guys too, they're all from different areas too, right? So they're not all like based at North Woolwich. There's Stratford guys there.
Jawany's from Stratford, yeah.
Yeah.
Jawany's from Stratford. I think Kingsley grew up in Manor Park or so.
Yeah.
I see Forest Gate. So all kind of the same region of Newham. And then yes, and we live nearby, like maybe a 15-minute journey or so. But like, yeah, so we're all kind of familiar with each other. Especially me and Jawany. I was familiar with Jawany before martial arts, the same age group, like a team in the park, something. So yeah.
So Jawany was a rugby boy too.
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
He was
Cumberland.
Cumberland, yeah. One of those schools.
Yeah.
Cumberland, yeah.
Yeah.
I just see him. He liked to play football back then, innit?
Yeah.
So I see him in Stratford Park.
Yeah.
A little cage bar.
Yeah.
So if I go a bus that's drive past, I always see him sometimes. Yeah.
So you was familiar with Jawany before even like meeting him at
Yeah,
Fight
but
for
we
Peace?
weren't like friends.
Yeah.
But I knew of him in that sense. Yeah, I just see him here and there in the area. It was one of those things. You just kind of familiar face in the area, kind of recognize them. Yeah.
And was there any other fighters that you grew up with in the area that maybe they was involved in the sport before you, or they're involved in the sport now, or combat sports? And
yeah, Mcfadyen. Like,
yeah,
me and Mcfadyen went to the same school.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought he was a rugby boy.
Yeah, he was a rugby boy. Yeah, he was the year below me.
Yeah.
And then obviously I knew him from school.
Yeah.
But wasn't my friends because I'm year above. It's weird to have friends when you're below you. But when we started martial arts, like we had a debut at the same time. Amateur MMA debut at the same time.
Yeah.
So we kind of, I guess, create a relationship from then.
Yeah.
Like we said, oh yeah, I'm fine today. You're fine today. Like we just support each other and then, and I kind of watched his journey from distance. He watched mine, and then I went on to do boxing and Muay Thai, and he continued in amateur.
Yeah.
And then when I think he was one of the reasons when I went back to MMA, because he needed help during COVID for one of his camps during lockdown, and then he asked me to come down to spar, and then I went down to spar, obviously do MMA sparring, and I was thinking, yo, I'm falling in love with it again, because I had my MMA debut, but I left it behind.
Yeah.
And then once I not really finished my Muay Thai, I just kind of like, I wanted to kind of go look for a gym to kind of to join. ESK was natural choice because I was there a few times before, and I'm already familiar with the coach and there's people there, so that was the reason why, kind of one of the reasons why I went back there.
Just before we move on to that, I just wanted to ask you. So, like, what was your first impressions of Fight for Peace when you walked through the doors and you started going to the classes? Because it was different from how it is now.
Yeah, really different. So Steve O'Keefe was my first MMA coach. Yeah, I just remember it being intense, man.
Yeah.
It was really intense. Like, obviously I was a bit smaller and I was a lot skinnier. So I'd do MMA session, I would get thrown about, just basically beat up. Then I would try the Muay Thai and I'd see Daniel Sam. My first interaction with him was, I was doing a plank and he kicked me. Like that's my first interaction without any conversation. He just saw me doing a plank and he just walked past, like walked towards me, kicked me. And then other sessions, like the boxing classes, it used to be packed out with so many people and it's hot heat and obviously an intimidating environment for especially a young boy. But I remember seeing guys my age and I'm very competitive in that sense. I say, yo, if these guys are doing it, I'm doing it too, like in that sense, innit? So that I just thought, you know what, I'm not gonna break under this pressure. I'm gonna try to go through it.
And that group that you was involved with, the MMA class back then, as you mentioned earlier, Dylan Adebisi was also training Muay Thai and MMA at that time. You've got Jawany Scott, John Mcfadyen. That Kingsley Crawford.
Yeah, of course, Kingsley.
Yeah, so like that was a really like talented group of fighters, up and coming fighters in the room. Like, what was those early training sessions like when you're just like all these young guys just getting to grips with things, you know?
Ah, man, it's really tough, innit? Because obviously we're all around the same size, we're all on the same kind of journey, and we have a coach that's a madman. So like, it's just a recipe of just disaster, not disaster, like good disaster, like just sparring needs to be hard, on a treadmill, like on crazy pace for a crazy amount of time, and you just compete with each other in that room. Obviously, Jawany King was probably a bit more experienced at the time, like maybe a year or two extra in training, and then you have to catch up. You think, okay, so, and if the one sparring session doesn't go your way, you go, no, next week's coming, I'm gonna try to get my licks back in that sense. So, and then, but all that aside, it was also like a good little family we had in it, because we obviously all support each other's, we go to each other's fights, and there was a time like probably me and Dylan we see each other every day for 2 years. Like it was time, like we would train like 3-4 times in that day, and we sleep in the gym. We train in the morning with Daniel, we go snap in a room, like another room. We train together, me and him, just by ourselves at like 12 in the afternoon, and then probably go nap again or eat something, and we have to do another session from 5 to 9. Like it was literally 2 years where we just spent together, just trying to improve each other, innit? Like in that sense. And like we spent so much time together. It's crazy how things played out.
It made me laugh when you said that, because just a couple of memories come back for me. I remember when I started, like 2020, just before COVID like kicked off, but then also like during COVID, I remember like Dylan, when you had the summer training session, I think it was like early sessions that was still allowed to go on. I remember Dylan being at the gate. I was there to open up, but he'd already be there like shadow boxing out. I could see him at the bottom of the street. I was like, right, that's Dylan.
You have to, like, even because most of us started late teens, we had a lot of catching up to do, so we just had to keep working in that sense. And we're obsessed as well. Young kids are obsessed with the sport, and the rewards are coming through now.
And how important was that coaching? Like you mentioned Steve there, Daniel, and like
Chris Cruz as well. I'll give
Chris. Chris is over at Diesel. XL Strength. And like how important was all that? Like you got like a wide range of coaching there, and like now you coach. Like what did you take from what you learned from the guys that you've put into your own coaching career?
So one of the things I've realized, especially when I'm coaching, like the best coaches are the ones that train with you sometimes. You know what I mean? Because Dan used to jump with us on those runs and the sprints, and then he used to make competitive. He used to run on treadmills, so even though he's a lot bigger, but not as fast. But don't let him say otherwise. But yeah, he was still compete with us. And then Steve, he's a black belt, seasoned black belt, and we were all white belts in time, and he used to smoke us. And like he kind of like are aware of the potential you could eventually reach. Hopefully, if you stay dedicated. And then at the time, both were active fighters. So you're seeing them fight at the highest level, and just extra motivation in that sense. So right now I'm competing, and I'm trying to hopefully end up in the highest level. Hopefully my students are coming up now, they see that and they get motivated in terms of, especially now that most of us in the same community, they look at someone like Somali in a community that's doing it, they get motivated and they say, yo, no, it's possible. As well as like people that thought it was never possible, people with parents thinking, like I remember telling my parents like, oh, I want to start training full time. I was like, there's no money in this. No one does it.
Yeah.
There's no one does it that looks like us or whatever. And then now, I guess they have a reason to kind of allow their kids to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll come back to it later, but I just want to just put it out there so I remember for later, because we're going to talk about Fight Style. But I remember like, which was really positive, Fight Style put out like a Somali takeover graphic when you guys, there's quite a few guys all competing on the card.
Yeah.
And that was really good to see. You see like the Somali flags in the comments, just like a, blue everywhere.
Yeah, blue everywhere. yeah. You go hard.
That was good. We'll come back to that, but that was really positive to see.